Now, please hold all questions until the guided lesson is completed. Now, as you can see, our exploration I want to start off with is getting an understanding of what does it really mean to divide? What is division? So what is division? Division is simply when you divide, you're making equal groups or equal shares. Now I want you to think about this: equal groups or equal shares. You're going to hear me say this often. And what is equal shares? Well, equal shares is exactly what the meaning says. You are sharing equally. For example, what is sharing equally? Now, suppose you have you and two other friends, and they're at your house, and you have some chocolates, and you want to share them. Now, when you share them, what you'll usually do is you'll say, one for me, one for you, then one for the other friend. And then you'll say one for me, then one for you, and then one for the other friend. And you will keep on sharing equally until everyone has their amounts of chocolates. And as you can see in the model, if there's 3 friends and you have 12 pieces of chocolate, each person gets a group of 4 chocolates, and it's equal. You can't have 5 pieces of chocolate and your friend has 4. They're going to look at you sideways. They're going to be like, what kind of friend are you? You get 5 and you only giving me 4? That's not sharing equally. Division is the skill of finding equal groups in a number. So if I was to use this example as a division problem, it would say 12 divided by 3, because you're trying to find 3 equal shares. Now, it looks really funny when you see the division algorithm. When you see a division algorithm, you see it in 2 ways. You see it in number sentence form, meaning left to right. And you also are, well, you should be familiar, not to take anything for granted, but you may have also seen it using a division bar. Sort of like a line over connected to a C. This is called a division bar. The division bar is the same thing as the division sign. It's saying divided by. Now, if I was to read this number expression, I would read it 6 and 7200ths divided by 3. If I was to rewrite it with the division bar, 6 and 7200ths would go inside the decimal bar, and the 3 would be outside of it. but I would read it in the same way. 6 and 72 hundredths divided by 3. Now, it's no different whether you are dividing into whole numbers, meaning without decimals, or with decimals, as you can see here. 6 and 72 hundredths divided by 3. But let's go a little bit differently. Dig a little bit deeper, excuse me. In our introduction to division, we're going to concentrate on how division helps us to form equal groups. To see equal groups or equal shares, you're going to hear me use that term often. We're going to model the thinking using place value. Mr. Hughes is very, very key on making sure his math masters understand the importance of place value. Each one of the numbers and where it is placed is important, not only in adding, not only in subtracting, not only in multiplying, but also division. I also want you all to understand when you're dividing, it's important to know what words in math mean for division. Now, let me rewrite this model in multiple ways. The number expression can also be shown, like I said, with a decimal bar. So let me make my model appear so you understand that it can be written in many ways. Division can be represented in many different ways. Wait till we get into fractions. I'm gonna really blow your mind. But anyway, back to division. 2 different ways. Now, each number's placement has a name. In division, you have what you are dividing into. Excuse me. 6 and 72 hundredths is known as what's called the dividend. Dividend is a word that expresses the number of groups you're dividing into. So the number in the division expression sentence is called the dividend. 6 and 72 hundredths divided by 3. The 6 and 72 hundredths is called a dividend. But what is the number that is dividing into the dividend called? This is the number of groups that you're trying to find equal shares or equal groups for. That is called and I'll call it the second D. It's called a divisor. A divisor is how many equal shares you trying to find for in the dividend. Dividend and divisor. Now you take the divisor and you try to find how many equal groups are in the dividend. Now, once you find those equal groups, you find what's called, and I don't know if you all looked at the morning announcements this morning, but Principal Barber used the word quotient. That's a very important word because that is the answer in a division problem. It's called the quotient. And when you find the quotient, you're finding the equal shares. It's equal. You found out how many groups are equal in the number you're dividing into. The equal shares, or the quotient, is the answer that you usually would put on top of the dividend box, or what you would say equals. So you have three major vocabulary words: quotient, divisor, and dividend. Dividend. Spelled it wrong. Dividend. There we go. Going too fast. So, how can you use place value to find or to complete division? Check it out. First of all, what number am I trying to find equal shares of? The dividend. I need to find out how many equal groups of 3 are in 6 and 72 hundredths. And how can I use a place value to do that? First of all, let me get you all familiar with a place value division chart. Now I know you all are looking at this and you're like, what is that? That looks like a bunch of craziness, Mr. Hughes. I mean, what is that? Don't freak out. With place value, you should be familiar of each place value in a number. Ones, then you would have tens, then you would have hundreds, and so forth to the left of the decimal point. But because you are in 5th grade, you have to step up your place value understanding because they are decimals. There are values less than 1. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. It's very important that you know your place value. for adding, subtracting, multiplying, and yes, division. Now, how do you use this place value chart, Mr. Hughes, to divide? And I think this is very exciting. And I'm going to show you the example with our equation here. In the dividend, I have what? I have 6 ones, 7 tenths, and how many hundredths? 2 hundredths. I make my place value chart. Ones, decimal, then tenths, and hundredths. And if I have thousands, it would be here. And then I label them. Ones, tenths. And notice I said tenths. Not tens, but tenths. Then I have hundredths. And I'm not going to spell that out, but I'll just say HTH for hundredths. And if I need it, thousandths. And I'm going to say TH here. Because in my dividend, I have ones, tenths, and hundreds. No thousands. So for the sake of today, I'm just going to, let's erase this thousands over here. Don't want to confuse you. Now, what makes using place value so cool is I use what's called, and you're going to hear me say this, either place value tallies or dots, place value dots. So let me look at my dividend. How many ones do I have? I have 6 ones. I show them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many tenths do I have? 7. 1, 2, 3. Please hold all questions until after the guided lesson. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And how many hundreds do I have? 1, 2. 6 ones, 7 tenths, 2 hundredths. My dividend is shown. Now, what about the divisor? The divisor is saying how many equal groups you have. So for every number, I make an equal group by making an equal group in my chart. 1 group, 2 groups. And then finally, 3 groups. 1, 2, 3. Now I've made my place value chart to help me find equal shares. And I'm just going to label them. 1, 2, 3. Now, what do I do next, Mr. Hughes? Check it out. I go through each place value column, and you're going to hear this word often, distribute equally. One here, one for number 2, and then got to do what you do for one, you got to do for the others. Shared equally. Keep on sharing. One for you, one for you, and one for you. Now, as you can see, there are equal shares for the ones place. 2, 2, 2. How many left over? No remainders. I'm good as gold, right? Now I can move over to the 10th place. Share them equally. And I'm going to show you the most efficient way. 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for you. Still got some more to share, right? Let's keep on sharing. Now just put a mark through it just so I know. 1 for you, 1 for you, and sorry, right there. And I'm sorry. Go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. And 1 for you. But we have a problem. I have this 1 left over, don't I? I can't share it. I can't share it because if I put 1 here, then 1 would have 3, and then 2 would have 2, and then 3 would have 2. That's not sharing equally. So what do I do? Well, you do what's called transfer. And you do it all the time. Well, not do it all the time, but you have used your understanding of place value already. You transfer it. You take this one and you bring it over, transfer it over. But when you transfer it over, you break it up. And whenever you bring it over in place value, remember, it's always times 10. So now the one that you bring over, you break it up into 10. Let me erase this right here. So this one that you bring over, you bring it over as 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. See, what I've done is put a mark through it, bring the remainder over and transfer and break it up into 10. So now in the hundredths place, I don't have 2 tallies anymore. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then I start sharing again. One for you. One for you. One for you. One for you. Notice what I'm doing. I'm giving equal shares. One for you. 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 And one for you. How many were left over? None were left over. So now I have equal shares for group 1, equal shares for group 2, and equal shares for group 3. So, Mr. Hughes, well, so what's the quotient, Mr. Hughes? What are the equal shares? Each group has 2 ones and 2 tenths, 1, 2 tenths, and how many hundredths? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 hundredths. Equal shares are my quotient. There are 2 and 24 hundredths in 3 groups in 6 and 72 hundredths. And I'm using my understanding of place value to find my divisor. Notice in each group, they have equal shares, just like in our anchor chart with the chocolates, each person was shared 4 chocolates. They all got the same. And that's what division is, finding equal shares. Now, I know that was just the first part. I saw or heard someone that was raising their hand. If you have any questions so far before I continue, are you confused or anything about my model so far, just raise your hand and ask your question, and I'll try to help clarify before I keep moving on.
That was me that raised my hand. I accidentally raised my hand, not knowing.
So you don't have a question?
I don't have a question. I'm sorry that I accidentally raised my hand.
Any other person have anything else to offer before I move on? Raise your hand. All right. Yes, Keon, what question do you have?
Mr. Hughes, when do we get a break?
That's not a math question that you're asking me. You have a math question to ask me. Yes or no? All right. No math questions so far. Now, before I start the video as the guided lesson, because it's kind of different than what we've been going through before, take a quick 5-minute break and we'll pick back up at 1 o'clock. Excuse me.